I will be fair, and if people haven't guessed by now, we're talking about Quinary from Final Space.
The romance is my biggest problem. It is a very beautiful, compelling show, and my problem, and it took me so long to realize in my ranting, and you've read my thousands of pages of writing.
Here's the deal. I myself finally got around to watching Final Space, and I'll admit, in the beginning, you were saying, like, oh man, they're trying to put Gary and Quinn together, and I just can't stand it. It's so... And I'll be honest, I'm a little bit biased, and I sat there and thought, like, oh, that's because there's some other character Lauren wants him to get together with, and come on, how bad could it be? Now, in actually watching the show, I don't know if we aired this podcast yet, but I did talk about it, is just the love confessions that, not that they come out of nowhere, but that they happen in the heat of the moment. Like, you have to have a whole aside in order for these two to confess their love. They need to be... One needs to be running into battle for the other to realize that they love them,
and that is my biggest problem with it.
Oh, the scene can't continue.
It can't continue. You need to have an aside, and there's no build to it. It's not one of those plots that, like, but then it gets intertangled with everything else. Like, Avocado, we kind of guessed mid-season 2 that they were going to bring him back.
Now, wait. I'm going to bring something up about Avocado, and this is something you point out frequently. The main love interest, so Quinn, for Gary, there's that scene where they're about to leave him, and she says, oh, no, we have to leave Jerry. We have to leave him. And Avocado, who isn't the love interest, but is supposed to be the best friend... kind of, the partner.
The best friend.
Gets pissed and goes, his name's Gary. Now, you think if they were trying to...
And he doesn't leave him, and he tells her we're not leaving him.
I get it's supposed to be a funny aside, and she did screw up his name in the beginning, which made it funny, and you can, she's going to end up being his lover later on, whatever. But that scene just completely threw me off as far as, okay, this is supposed to be... his lover, who's eventually going to rip apart time and space to be with him, kind of, in a way, but...
No, it was more so, she felt like she had done wrong.
Oh, really?
She had done wrong, and she needed to make it right, and they actually have, like, a little argument right before they kiss each other, where they're arguing about who gets to take the bomb, and Gary feels it's his destiny to do so because of his dad. And Quinn... is, no, it's mine. I've got to fix my mistakes. And I'm not saying Quinn is a bad character, and I actually love her interactions with Tribor. I think that's very fascinating. Quinn is
in Nightfall, right?
Nightfall.
They are genuinely good characters.
When they're not having an aside with Gary, but that's all the fucking time.
Why are they trying to push the romance? The show would have been fantastic without romance. They would have a pretty stellar friendship without romance.
And one of and I keep saying this, I always say my biggest problem. Nightfall is meant to be a surrogate for Quinn while she is in Final Space, and that kind of took away some of the impending... what have you, whereas with Avocado's death, I'm just going to compare it because it's the only other death in the show, where it was a main character. With Avocado's death, they foreshadowed several episodes later that he might come back. There is a chance. And he could come back, and so when he actually does come back, his reunion scene was very heart-wrenching. When Nightfall... shows up and, I'm future Quinn. And then we find out she's future alternate Quinn.
I was going to say, is she future Quinn or alternate dimension Quinn?
Alternate dimension Quinn. And the first times they met, which was a very disturbing episode. But in the episode, she's like, don't you want to know how you eventually became me? And while Quinn is in Final Space, it's like, we know Quinn's not going to stay in Final Space. Even no one comes back from Final Space, Gary. And I'm not coming back, Gary. And you sit there like, well, we just saw Nightfall. And it kind of took away from that, oh my gosh, we should be concerned. And not only that, but you also had, like, when Little Kato gets adopted. When Gary decides he's going to go back in time and save Avocado at the cost of himself. When... all of these scenes, where it should be important and we should focus on it, it's and Quinn.
Oh, but we don't need a side plot. I mean, there's a scene where they're dancing through the ship, which was fine.
It was adorable.
And really cute, and everybody kind of did their own thing. I mean, even Nightfall included. But all of a sudden, the whole scene pauses, and Nightfall turns into Quinn, and Gary has this I don't know, realization that he's still in love with her or hasn't. Well, I don't know what the hell that break was.
Not only that, but when Avocado died, this bothered me. Beautiful scene, and this was actually the scene that really got you into the series. I mean,
that was because of the music score, and we're going to talk about that in a minute.
The music score in a minute, but when he died, he comes in, and he has this beautiful reunion with his son. Cut to Quinn walking out onto the veranda. And then, okay, back to Avocado and his son, but don't forget, here's Quinn laughing. And then back to Avocado and his son. Hold on, I'm not done because I'm still describing this scene. Because then Quinn is staring lovingly into the eyes of Gary, who looks up and is smiling at Quinn. And then there's a bomb. And not only is there a bomb and everyone's freaking out, but here's what Quinn's doing in the background.
I will say this. Final Space, like you said, it's really... The animation's great.
It is a fantastic show.
For the most bit is great. I think the romance, that just comes down to writing. I could see, they remind me of Fry and Leela from Futurama. So I can see where they would want a romance. But much like Fry and Leela, there were times where it worked and there were times where you were sitting there going, oh, come on. And that was just the whole damn show. Now, I will say this, and I will say this about Futurama as well. That was probably one of my favorite first cartoons. Both had incredible music scores. I want to focus on other things without it being so, oh, and by the way, you guys...
My biggest fear, and this isn't to, shit on people who do ship Quinary, but
no.
This is putting it into words why I have a problem with it.
I'm not saying that Quinary is a bad ship itself. Would they make a good couple? Yes. Are they written as a good couple? Hell no. Are they portrayed as a good couple? Not in the show. But are there things about... Did I watch Quinn initially and watch Gary initially separately and think under different circumstances these two can and will be a good couple? Yeah. Well, I don't like in the show how they need to stop their... All their romantic moments need to have an aside, a complete aside.
They need to force it back into your face. And I wouldn't have... And I think Nightfall put it best with the, always meant to be together but never meant to be. And
Which was interesting, actually. I wonder how that's going to end up playing out.
Well, and you have... You have very compelling storylines. You have things I wish they would explore more, and instead of doing that, it's, oh, here's Quinary. There's an episode, I didn't appreciate this kind of opening, where Nightfall is flirting with Gary and is pushing all these buttons, and what does this button do? What does this button do? What does this button do? And he goes, that button will kill us all. Do not push it. Don't push that button. I am telling you not to push that button, and she mistakes it as him flirting and pushes the button and almost kills little Kato. But it's written that if Gary did that, we have an entire cutaway of Quinn complaining what a selfish jackass he is. But then Nightfall does it, and it's it's funny, and it's her flirting with him, and it kind of, that scene to me was kind of like a what the hell. They're both very capable people, and in scenes like that, it's almost awkward. One has to stoop to the other's level in order for it.
But there was, what scene was it? It's when Gary is able to contact Quinn in Final Space. And she says, this is a place of death. Nobody gets past. And you see all these other versions of Gary that try to get to her. That scene was good. That was
Oh,
compelling.
the scene
that
when they
was
found her.
amazing. The scene where they found her and he gets off the... Oh, I just got chills thinking about it. That scene was good. But what is going on, like, the other, like, 90% of the
It's
time?
surrounded by crap.
What did I say? Oh, no, wait. No, hold on. This is a future podcast. Never mind.
But it's surrounded by... Not that it's surrounded by crap, but it's kind of like... And I'll bring up another show that has a romance I can't really stand because it's creepy. Miraculous Ladybug. Where you'll have
that's
good...
not even fair. That's two 15-year-olds just being gross.
I'm bringing it up because you do have some scenes...
It gets a little weird,
that are
yes.
compelling.
I will say this, just Nightfall and Gary's interaction versus, like...
I liked it, but
I like her as her own character.
But not even a romantic light.
Well, and not even that. I mean, not even to, like shit on Quinn. But I love Nightfall as her own character.
She was more mature. There were times I couldn't stand her. There was a scene where Gary is, like, naked and chained down. She, like, jumps on him. And this is why
I forgot about that scene.
I stopped watching the show because of that scene, because I felt, and someone was like, oh, no, it was because this was going on. It's like, but you set up...
It was still so awkward.
You set up a rape joke, pretty much. I'm sorry, I know it ended up being something else, but
it's uncomfortable to watch.
That still scares me a little. But it's played off as a joke. When Nightfall does something to Gary... It's funny. It's humorous. She drains the entire ship of power trying to create a clone of Gary or a copy of her husband.
And not even wonder, but we're kind of Gary in this situation. We only know as much as Gary knows. So if Quinn's got this whole background, like, not Quinn, I'm sorry, Nightfall has this whole, like, background love with him, we wouldn't know. So all of this just looks really, like...
really awkward. And
yeah.
Especially, like, Quinn goes from hating Gary, then she watches, like, there's an entire aside. We don't even talk about her mission. She's watching videos of Gary slowly succumbing to his near insanity from his loneliness while he is in prison on the Galaxy One for 5 years. And he only knew her for a couple of minutes before then and is obsessed with her. Even if he did know her from a past life, like you said, we wouldn't know that. He is so used to, when I'm feeling sad and lonely, I just go and I film a video for Quinn. To the point that when he actually has people he can discuss this with that's not Quinn, he's still going and filming it, and oh my gosh, Quinn, and that kind of... But you wouldn't focus on that. You wouldn't focus on that being Gary's coping mechanism, and now he finally has people. You wouldn't figure that out. It would be, oh, ha, look, Gary's sad because Quinn rejected him again. And it's not fair to Quinn, it's not fair to Gary, because I'm not saying that Quinn is a bad person for not respecting Gary, because she has her reasons, and we see that in the show, and we understand that. But for Gary being our hero, and this is supposed to be our love interest, and we're supposed to see Gary grow from this, it's a little disheartening to see that that's how they plan to do it, that we're not even going to have Gary grow as his person away from Quinn and learn that, you know what, I am seeing her through rose-colored glasses and I need to perfect myself first instead of just badgering her until she accepts me as I am. We don't get that. It's, oh, well, he's got Nightfall to act as his surrogate until Quinn comes back, and he does grow as his own person, but we don't get to focus on that. He adopts little Kato. He decides to go back in time and sacrifice himself for his friend, you know, so his son can have his father. We see him, you know, with his mom, interacting with his mom, but there's still the overtone of, oh, I need to do this for Quinn.
Now, unfortunately for a time, I will have to cut it
That's
here,
fine.
And then I have to splice a couple things
That's
down.
fine. I got all what I wanted to say.
I eventually want to do a full Final Space review because I feel like we touched on a lot of key points that I really want to talk about, but can't.
Quinary is it's a whole subcategory.
Now that we got that out of the way,
the show,
now we can talk about all the good, but that'll have to come in a different podcast.
I'm fine with that.
Next month. So we will cut it here.